got the shock of my life when I found out that my husband is sleeping with my AP's daughter. Hey Reddit, longtime lurker here, but this is my first time posting. I have things to get off my mind. I'm not sure where to turn or how to process this whirlwind of emotions. I just needed to share this with someone, to vent and perhaps find some solace in sharing my story. So I guess here I am, pouring my heart out to you, Reddit. My husband, or should I say ex-husband now, has just done something unimaginable. I know he's furious with me, and I don't absolve myself of guilt. I cheated, and that's on me. But what Nicholas did goes beyond any measure of revenge. He crossed a line that has shattered my life irreparably. Let me back up a bit. My name is Emily, and I'm 35 years old. Nicholas, my husband, is 30. We met on a dating site, went through the beautiful stages of dating, and eventually tied the knot 5 years ago. We have 2 wonderful boys, aged 6 and 4. Our life seemed perfect from the outside, successful careers, a loving family, and dreams of a future together. But as life often does, it threw challenges our way, and I made a terrible mistake. I know I hurt Nicholas deeply with my actions. I'm not excusing my behavior, but what he did in retaliation tore my world apart. We're not divorced yet, still in the process of legal separation while trying to shield our children from the whole thing that's going on. I've been going on, and I'm really sorry about that. It's just that I'm feeling incredibly upset and furious. Our jobs were solid. Nicholas was this fiery, successful lawyer, and I was in architecture. I had a great job, but I got fired after all this mess because the company owner is friends with Nicholas. It stung because I got that job mainly through Nicholas's connections. Life before this chaos was like living in a perfect bubble. Nicholas and I were both go-getters, climbing our career ladders. We weren't sweating bills thanks to Nicholas's family money. We had this cozy home, 2 cute kids, and our bond felt unbreakable. We split the chores and bills quite fairly, but let's be real. Nicholas took on the bigger chunk. It wasn't a big deal, though, because we both knew he brought in more money. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was good. We had our routines, our arguments, and our happy moments. Things were chugging along until I messed it all up. Things were pretty much like that for some time. Nicholas hardly had any free time. You might think that as an architect I'd be snowed under, but that wasn't the case. I had my team handling most of the workload, which left me with loads of free hours. Plus, since I got the job through Nicholas's connections, my workload was lighter compared to others in my field. Now Nicholas, he was swamped. He's a top-notch lawyer. He's known for never losing a case. His stellar reputation made everyone want to work with him, which added to his already hectic schedule. On top of that, he had what you could call a normal libido. We were intimate a few times a week at most, but I had a much higher sex drive and wanted sex more frequently. Nicholas was a real catch. Charming, brainy, funny, and driven. Those traits totally hooked me, and it's no wonder he climbed the success ladder so darn fast. But with all that success came a big sacrifice. His time. He was always buried in work, leaving us with only scraps of time together. So our relationship sort of turned into this routine where we were just 2 busy people cohabiting. Our connection lost its spark, and we didn't have those deep, meaningful moments like before. But Nicholas was always there for our kids. They absolutely adored him, and every spare moment he had was spent with them. It was sweet seeing how close they were, especially our eldest, who looked up to his dad like a hero. At just 6, he already had dreams of being a lawyer like him someday. Then at one of those work conferences, that's when I ran into Adam, my affair partner. I can't justify my actions, and I'm not trying to excuse what I did. But Adam had this charm about him that drew me in, something I hadn't felt in a long time. With Nicholas being constantly tied up with work, I often felt invisible in our relationship. Adam changed that. It started innocently enough. We struck up a conversation at the conference, and there was this undeniable chemistry between us. He was attentive, asking about my work and genuinely interested in what I had to say. For someone who felt overlooked at home, his attention felt refreshing. As we parted ways after the conference, we exchanged numbers and agreed to stay in touch. I knew he was into me, and I won't lie. I enjoyed the flattery. But deep down, I told myself it was harmless, that it wouldn't go beyond friendly banter. A few days went by. I tried to ignore Adam's first few messages, but they kept coming, almost like he was on a mission. So I resorted to replying in a pretty short and snappy way, trying to keep things strictly casual. But Adam was persistent. He didn't give up easily. This guy was like a persistent salesperson at your door. His messages kept popping up, and eventually I caved in and started chatting with him more. I didn't see any harm in it, just harmless chatting. I figured it wouldn't hurt to shoot the breeze a bit. So we started talking about our days, work stuff, and random topics. Adam had this knack for making even boring stuff sound interesting. He'd crack jokes, share funny stories, and before I knew it, I was looking forward to his messages. It was a nice break from the usual routine. That's how our chat marathon kicked off. As Adam and I kept talking, we really got to know each other. It's funny how our situations mirrored each other's at first glance. He opened up about his marriage, which was in a similar boat to mine, or maybe a bit worse. His wife was always buried in work, just like mine, and their love had fizzled out over time. It's crazy how work can mess up something so good, right? They had a daughter, Emma, who was already in her 20s. Adam himself was in his 40s, but you wouldn't guess it from his energy and vibe. Despite being older, Adam had this infectious energy that oozed from his messages. He acted like a kid at times in a good way. Our conversation started to get a bit flirtatious. It was harmless, or at least that's what we told ourselves. We were just two married people having a bit of fun in our conversations. It felt exciting, like a little escape from the routine of our lives, even though deep down we knew we were treading on thin ice. As Adam and I talked more, we started liking each other even more. I began to fancy him a bit, wondering what it would be like to, be close to him. But I always brushed those thoughts off as just daydreams. We both had days off sometimes, especially me. Adam stayed home. He had been a stay-at-home dad when their daughter Emma was little and then just never went back to work, which was cool. Although it was kind of unusual at first, but I guess every family does things differently, right? On those days when I didn't have work, Adam suggested we hang out. He asked when was the last time I went out with friends. It had been forever since I went out with anyone. I wasn't exactly the social butterfly back in school. I was more of the loner in school, not the cool kind, sadly. I mostly kept to myself and didn't make many real friends. So the idea of spending time with someone, even if it was just casual, sounded nice. As Adam and I started hanging out more, it became a regular thing. Whenever I had a day off and felt bored at home, I'd arrange for my younger sibling to babysit or hire a babysitter so I could go out with Adam. Initially, it was just casual outings, nothing too serious or romantic. This new routine didn't go unnoticed by my husband, Nicholas. He began to question why I was going out more often, especially to places I rarely visited alone before, like the movies or the mall. These were simple places, yet they felt refreshing to me because they were like a break from the mundane routine I had fallen into. Plus, Adam was the one who mostly picked the locations. Nicholas, being occupied with work, hadn't paid much attention until then. He mentioned that he had noticed I was leaving the house a lot outside of my working days, which surprised him as I wasn't one to do that. He wasn't one to check locations regularly, so this was out of the norm for him. His concern was more about my well-being than anything else. He felt bad that work was consuming him and our time together was getting limited. I reassured him that everything was fine and that I appreciated his concern. I even found it kind of cool that he noticed these small changes. It showed he cared. He apologized again for being busy, hoping that things would ease up soon. I assured him that I was just spending some quality time with myself since he, my closest companion, had his plate full with work. As Adam and I hung out more, he took charge of our plans. He introduced me to stuff like fishing and golfing, things I never really cared for until he showed me how fun they could be. Our fishing trips were a blast. We'd pack up our gear, head out to a nearby lake or river, and spend hours casting lines and chatting. Adam was patient. He taught me the ins and outs of fishing, from picking bait to reeling in a catch. It was a whole new world for me, surprisingly relaxing and enjoyable. Golfing became another favorite. Adam patiently taught me the basics, from how to stand and swing to understanding the game's rules. I never thought I'd like golf, but Adam's excitement made it fun. We'd laugh at our mistakes and cheer for each other's successes on the course. These activities brought us closer. Our talks got more personal, and I found myself sharing things I hadn't told anyone else. Adam brought out a side of me that had been dormant. He made life feel more adventurous and fun. As time went on, Adam and I got closer and closer. We'd hang out at his place a lot because he was usually by himself. His wife was busy at work and their daughter Emma was off at college, so it was just us. We'd watch movies, chat, and eventually we crossed that line. We ended up sleeping together. I thought I'd feel guilty afterward, but you know what? I didn't, not even a bit. It was more like a weight off my shoulders. That's when the affair started between Adam and me. We had a real talk after we had sex that day and realized how much we wanted each other. It was like finding a missing piece of a puzzle. We just clicked. We both felt happier when we were together, so we made the choice to dive into an affair. It wasn't a decision we took lightly, but the spark between us was too strong to ignore. And the closer I got to Adam, the more distant I grew from my husband. It was like living in two separate worlds. One with Adam, where everything including the sex was great, and the other with my husband, where everything seemed dull and distant. Despite my husband's efforts to be around more, taking on fewer cases and trying to reconnect with me, it felt like I was slipping away. The more I continued with my affair, the more I realized how distant I had become from my husband. It confused him, and he tried hard to bridge the gap, but it was like there was a barrier between us that he couldn't break through. Months rolled by, and Adam and I kept sneaking around together. We'd find excuses to meet up, like running errands or claiming I had to work overtime. Comparing my time with Adam to my marriage with Nicholas was like night and day. With Adam, every moment felt alive and full of excitement. We laughed, talked for hours, and shared a connection that felt electric. On the other hand, being with Nicholas felt boring and distant, and we no longer had the spark we once had. Even though I sometimes felt guilty about the affair, the enjoyment of being with Adam overshadowed any doubts. It was like a breath of fresh air. Well, I guess all things must finally come to an end, right? What was I even thinking that I could get away with it? That I was too smart for my own good? The day Nicholas kicked me out, I didn't even see it coming. He had gone out and I was worried sick because I hadn't heard from Adam in days. A few hours later, Nicholas stormed back home earlier than expected. And let me tell you, he looked like thunderclouds ready to burst. Everything changed in that moment. I didn't even need a sorcerer to tell me why Nicholas looked like that. The weight of guilt and regret hit me like a freight train. I knew I had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. My mind raced with thoughts of how I could have been so foolish, so reckless. It was like a movie playing in slow motion, except this wasn't fiction. It was my life unraveling before my eyes. He didn't say a word at first, just stormed into the living room where I was sitting. His eyes looked so angry and disappointed. I tried to speak, to ask him what was wrong. I wanted to pretend, but he immediately cut me off with a sharp gesture. Nicholas's response hit me like a ton of bricks. I was bracing myself for a heated outburst, but he surprised me by staying eerily calm. He didn't yell or curse. Instead, he calmly informed me that he was aware of my affair and gave me just 20 minutes to grab my stuff and get out. It was like a cold slap in the face. He explained that he could have unleashed his anger, but he chose not to for the sake of our kids. He didn't want them to witness a scene, to hear their parents shouting at each other. He practically begged me to leave peacefully. I was stunned into silence. How could he know? I had been so careful, or so I thought. Panic was washing over me as I tried to come up with an explanation, an excuse, anything to salvage the situation. But deep down, I knew there was no way out of this. I felt trapped. I knew I had messed up big time. Despite having nowhere else to go, I had no choice but to start packing. I quietly gathered my stuff, making sure the kids didn't catch on to what was happening. I knew Nicholas had a way with words, especially with the kids, so I trusted him to handle the explanation smoothly. With a heavy heart, I called an Uber and headed to Adam's place, hoping for at least a place to stay or something. But when I got there, it wasn't Adam who answered the door. It was his wife, or should I say ex-wife. I'd only ever seen her pictures. She went off on me, screaming and telling me to get lost. She then started reveling in my misery. She looked at my stuff and said she was glad I was on the street. I then realized Adam was also out of the picture. She'd kicked him out too. I scrambled to call him, hoping he'd pick up and offer some kind of help. Thankfully, he did, directing me to his parents' place where he was staying temporarily. It wasn't an ideal situation, but it was better than being out on the streets. Adam and I went through a phase of blaming each other for the mess we found ourselves in. It was easy to point fingers, but deep down, we knew it wasn't just our fault. The attraction between us was just too strong, almost magnetic. We acknowledged that staying together wasn't going to be easy, but we were willing to face whatever challenges came our way. As for my family, well, that was a dead end. I've never had a close relationship with them, and I knew they wouldn't welcome me with open arms. The thought of going back there was out of the question. I could already imagine the lectures and judgment I'd face. And with my husband likely already painting me as the villain, I didn't stand a chance with them. Adam's parents, on the other hand, were more understanding. They welcomed us into their home, but it wasn't exactly spacious. With several of Adam's siblings and their families already living there, we knew our stay would have to be temporary. Still, we were grateful for their hospitality and the roof over our heads. Desperate for a lifeline, we attempted to reach out to our exes for financial support. Adam tried his luck with his wife while I mustered up the courage to ask my husband. Both requests were met with rejection. My husband's response was especially harsh. He made it clear that divorce was imminent. He hurled insults and accusations over the phone. My husband wasn't done with me, though. The day after my husband kicked me out, I made the decision to call in sick at work for at least a week. I needed time to settle into my new living arrangement and figure out the logistics of commuting from Adam's place. Barely a week after I had called in sick, I received a call from my workplace, and the news couldn't have been worse. I was fired. Not only that, but they didn't even extend the courtesy of a 2-week notice. Their reasoning? A thorough investigation revealed that my assistants had been handling the bulk of my responsibilities while I contributed next to nothing. My incompetence had cost me my job and tarnished my professional reputation. I lost my job not just because I wasn't great at it, but also because of Nicholas's influence. He probably called up the boss, being buddies and all, and got me booted. It stung knowing that someone I once trusted had turned on me like that. I thought about suing, but that felt like a joke. I mean, where would I get the cash for legal battles? We were barely making ends meet, trying to save up to get out of Adam's parents' place. Adam himself was in a tough spot. He'd been out of work for years, and now he was trying to find something decent, but jobs were scarce, and the ones available were just low-paying grunt work. It felt like we were stuck in a loop of bad luck and tough choices. Every day was a struggle to keep our heads above water, let alone think about fighting legal battles or finding stable jobs. The reality of our situation was a far cry from what we had hoped for. The situation was getting tougher by the day. Money-wise, we were barely scraping by. Despite our constant job hunt, all we found were dead-end, low-paying jobs that neither of us wanted. It was a real struggle, and the stress kept piling up. To make matters worse, everyone was pointing fingers at us. Adam's parents, though they let us stay with them temporarily, didn't hold back their disappointment. They made it clear that our choices had landed us in this mess. My ex-husband, who was still seething with anger, refused to lift a finger to help. Adam's wife also refused to help. She had shut us out completely. We were left to fend for ourselves. And just when we thought things couldn't get any worse, Adam's mom's birthday celebration turned into a bitter reality check. We thought a small gathering would lift our spirits, but it only turned into the craziest day of our lives. Adam was excited about the birthday party because that meant he would see Emma. She was still angry that he had cheated on her mom, so she refused to talk to him. Adam was excited that he would finally see Emma and mend the fracture in their strained relationship. Cue the day of the party, guests are arriving. The last thing we expected was Nicholas showing up with Emma. The whole situation felt like a bad dream. Adam was visibly shocked, and I was just as stunned. My jaw was practically on the floor. Why was Nicholas here with Emma, acting like her date? It was like a twisted joke, but there was nothing funny about it. Adam wasted no time in confronting Emma about what was happening, but Emma, completely nonchalant, introduced Nicholas to everyone as her boyfriend. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Most of the guests had no clue about Nicholas being my ex-husband. They just knew about my affair. So to add insult to injury, everyone seemed to be charmed by Nicholas. His charisma and easygoing nature made him a hit with the crowd, which only fueled my jealousy and anger. How could he move on so quickly? Throughout the evening, I couldn't look away from him. Every time our eyes met, he smirked and looked away, and it left me seething and heartbroken. I know this might sound like a long vent, but I needed to get it all out. It just feels so messed up, doesn't it? How could he move on so quickly? I'm tired of Adam. I didn't sign up for this. Update. Hey Reddit. I knew I'd get a mix of responses posting this, but the hate comments still hit hard. Some people seemed almost gleeful that Nicholas had left me, while others said I deserved it for choosing Adam after cheating. Look, I'm not excusing what I did. I know it was wrong, and I'm facing the consequences head on. I'm suffering, and the last thing I need is more negativity. Now to answer a frequently asked question about my kids. I haven't mentioned them because I haven't seen them since I left the house. Right now, I'm just trying to survive. I miss them, but I need stability before I can think about visiting them. Sadly, the chances of me getting custody are slim due to state laws, but I'm holding out hope. I also want to address the doubts about my story being fake. I get it. It sounds like a soap opera. But this is my life right now, messy and chaotic. I'm sorry if it's hard to believe. As for my feelings, they're a mess too. I thought I loved Adam, but now I realize I don't. I love Nicholas. Seeing him with Emma hurt, especially knowing they're likely together. I want my husband back, but I don't see that happening. On to an actual update. Adam has invited Emma over to talk. He made her promise not to bring Nicholas. I'll update after that conversation happens. Thanks for reading. Update. Hey Reddit, I'm feeling incredibly worn out and sad right now. I promised an update on how the conversation with Emma went, and it went terribly. Emma showed up, but she brought Nicholas along, and he didn't even bother getting out of the car. He just smirked at me, which only added to my frustration. Emma's attitude towards me was incredibly rude. She acted as if I didn't even exist. This isn't the first time she's treated me this way. She did the same at her grandmother's birthday party. I understand she's upset because her dad cheated on her mom with me, but it's not like I forced him to do it. She shouldn't be taking her anger out on me. Adam tried to have a conversation with Emma, but it didn't go anywhere. She insisted that she and Nicholas were in love and dismissed everything Adam tried to explain about Nicholas using her to hurt us. Emma said Nicholas had already told her everything and she didn't care what we thought. It seems like she is completely under Nicholas's influence. Emma told us that now that she and Nicholas were together, she would be bringing him to all family events. I feel so defeated and overwhelmed right now. I just want to leave, but I have nowhere to go. I've also noticed a question that keeps popping up, and that's about why I'm broke despite having had a successful career as an architect. The truth is, I had no savings. I'll be honest. I was a reckless spender, or at least I used to be. It wasn't until Nicholas kicked me out that I realized I had almost zero savings of my own. So there you have it. That's why I'm in this financial situation. Update. Hey everyone, I appreciate the feedback, both positive and negative. To address some common questions, many of you are wondering why, despite having a successful career, it's been challenging for me to find another job. Honestly, I wish I had an answer. It's been tough, and I've been actively searching. I'm not a witch or a magician. I can't conjure up job offers. I simply haven't had luck finding another job. It's frustrating because I really want to move on from this situation. As for my current situation, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Adam has become clingier lately, probably sensing that I'm considering leaving. He's leaning on me heavily, and it's starting to wear me down. I've been feeling so fed up with everything. I've come to realize that Adam is quite lazy, which explains why he never had a job and why his wife had to support the household. I'm the one putting in the effort to find work, while he only does so when pressed, and even then his interest wanes quickly. Also today I was served divorce papers, and the terms aren't favorable for me. Adam insists I contested in court, but I signed a prenup, so there's not much I can expect to get out of this divorce. It's a very tough spot to be in. Reddit. Hey Reddit fam, just dropping a quick update. Not much has changed except Adam's being his usual self, which is super annoying. I find myself missing Nicholas more than ever, but I've accepted that returning to him isn't an option now. I made my bed, so now I have to lie in it. On a brighter note, I have a job interview lined up. Keep your fingers crossed for me. Adam and I had a heated argument about job hunting. He insists he's putting in effort, but honestly, I see minimal action from his end. To add to our stress, his parents are subtly hinting that our stay with them has an expiration date, maybe a month or two tops, and yet Adam's job search remains stagnant. Update. Hey Reddit, giving you a quick update, and yeah, it's kind of crazy how despite the negativity I sometimes face here, posting on Reddit feels oddly therapeutic. With therapy out of financial reach right now, I guess this platform serves as my makeshift counseling session. So here I am. The situation with Nicholas is driving me up the wall. Emma's relationship with Adam remains strained, but she's a frequent visitor at her grandparents' place, always with Nicholas in tow. It's like rubbing salt in Adam's wounds. He's been spoiling her rotten, buying her a new car, phone, clothes, you name it. It's like a slap in the face every time I see her flaunting it all. Nicholas, in particular, seems to take pleasure in smirking at me whenever our paths cross. Our only interaction lately was him asking if I've signed the divorce papers yet. On top of that, the job hunt has hit a dead end. Rejection after rejection has me feeling lower than ever. My libido, that was once high, has taken a nosedive. I even turned down Adam's attempts at intimacy because our relationship is drowning in much bigger issues, and those overshadow sex right now. Many of you have been asking about my kids. I haven't seen them yet because I'm not in a place where I want them to see me like this, vulnerable and struggling. I promised myself I'd reunite with them once I've sorted out my own mess, but honestly, I'm not sure when that'll be. Update. Hey Reddit fam, another quick update from the trenches of my life. The negativity in the comments has simmered down a bit, which is a relief. I had a heated argument with Adam recently, and I'm starting to question if he's just out of touch or plain clueless. First off, the good news, I finally snagged a job. It's not glamorous or well-paying, but it's something. Right now, anything beats sitting around in this awkward situation. I'm itching to have my own place again so I can get away from all the strained politeness and pretending I like Adam's family. Adam, on the other hand, is still on the job hunt. He's as lackadaisical as ever and keeps bringing up my divorce. He's under this delusion that we'll walk away with a fortune because Nicholas is wealthy. He's fantasizing about getting a big payout, but he's forgetting one crucial detail. Nicholas is a lawyer, and there's a rock-solid cheating clause in our prenup. I've tried explaining this to Adam, but he brushes it off as pessimism. Realistically, we don't even have the money to hire a lawyer, let alone battle it out in court. It's frustrating dealing with someone who's not facing reality.
No.
To those mocking me for not wanting Nicholas to move on despite me cheating. Yes, I did hope he'd move on eventually, but not like this and not this quickly. Especially not with Emma, Adam's daughter. It's a painful reminder of how little he cared for me. Adam's also struggling with the situation. He's angry and saddened by it all, often boiling over with rage whenever Nicholas is around, and sometimes I think he wants to rush over and fistfight with Nicholas. But let's be real, Adam wouldn't stand a chance against Nicholas in any confrontation. That's the update for now. It's a very messy situation, and I'm just trying to navigate through it all. Update.
Hey, Reddit.
I've noticed a common question popping up, so I'll address it once more. Many of you are curious about my family situation. Well, let me be clear. We're not exactly the picture-perfect, happy family. In fact, we're quite the opposite. There's a long history of animosity between us, and it's not just a phase. It's deeply rooted. I'm pretty sure Nicholas has spilled the beans to them about what went down, and they've chosen not to reach out. Frankly, I wouldn't expect anything different from them. We've never seen eye to eye, and there's no love lost between us. I didn't even consider going to my parents' place when Nicholas kicked me out. I knew they wouldn't take me in, let alone offer any support. It would have probably ended in mockery and more drama. Now for a brighter update, I've been grinding at work. It's been a few weeks since my last update, and I've been putting in the hours. I'm squirreling away every cent from my paycheck because I'm determined to get out of this mess. And no, Adam isn't in my plans for the future. He's lazy, lacks ambition, and seems content with dependency. I haven't shared this with him yet because I know it would set off a storm. Thanks for reading this and sticking with me through all of this. I know it's been a roller coaster, but I appreciate the support, however little it may be. Update. Hey Reddit, I'm sitting in the bathroom at the courthouse, and I'm not sure if I should be laughing or crying. This situation is just so absurd that I had to share it with you all. Adam and I were at court today for the final divorce proceedings, hoping for some closure and resolution. Well, let me tell you, it was a whirlwind of emotions. I knew deep down that I wouldn't get anything out of the divorce. There was an ironclad prenup in place, and Nicholas clearly had it all planned out, I'm sure. So when the judgment came down, I wasn't surprised. No alimony, no assets, not even custody of my kids. That last part hit me hard, but I saw it coming. In my state, cheating is a game changer, and the kids automatically go to the non-cheating spouse. Nicholas got custody, not just because of that, but also because he's financially stable. He's got a house, money, stability, the whole package. He's the poster child for the perfect scenario, I guess. It hurt, and I cried, but at least I knew what I was walking into. But here's where it gets even crazier. Adam, after all this goes down, starts losing it. He's yelling in the courtroom, blaming me for everything. He says I didn't try hard enough, that if I had used some of my paycheck for a lawyer, we could have gotten something. It's like he's living in a different reality. I keep reminding him about the prenup, about my limited options, but he's not hearing it. Then out of nowhere, he tells me he's done with me. He told me he's done with me, that I need to pack my things and leave. He's kicking me out of the house because he feels I'm useless now. So here I am, in shock, writing this post from the bathroom because what the hell just happened? I don't know what's next, but I guess life has a funny way of throwing curveballs. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been a while since I last updated, and I want to thank all of you for the positive comments amidst the negativity. Yes, there were hurtful remarks, people saying I deserved what happened, but that's life, right? As most of you probably guessed, Adam did kick me out eventually. I took what little belongings I had and left. Right now I'm rooming with someone in a tiny apartment. It's crazy expensive thanks to the housing crisis, but I didn't have much choice. Things have been tough, really tough, but I'm relieved to be away from Adam, who seemed content to depend on me without making any effort himself. He's tried to apologize and reach out a few times, but I've chosen not to engage. As for the kids, when it's my visitation day, Nicholas sometimes lets me come over to the house to see them instead of bringing them to my cramped apartment. It's a small comfort, but I'll take what I can get. This might be my last update for a while. I just wanted to share where things stand now. Thanks for reading and sticking with me through this tumultuous journey. Take care, everyone. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where everything seems to be falling apart? Well, let me tell you about my recent experience. My name is Kylie Robinson, female 26, and my husband is Brandon Brown, male 29. My husband and I met at Cardiff when I went to visit my friend Olivia, female 26, and her nana Brandon lived there with his parents. Well, his parents and my friend's nana were somehow friends, or must I say they were family friends. We dated for a year and a half, then he proposed. His parents, along with my Nana, were so happy at the fact that we had actually met their hopes. I was surprised when Nana told me that she had been praying that I date Brandon because he was a good, humble, and respectful young man with a good sense of humor. I just couldn't believe Nana, but I was glad and felt blessed at the fact that she had wished and prayed for nothing but the best for me. I remember when Brandon's mom was so over the moon and busy gushing about the wedding. She actually wanted us to make her the wedding planner. It was somehow really funny to see her wanting to be hands-on like that, but Arthur didn't want her to be. So we had hired a wedding planner to take care of everything that we would need. I was focusing on having the best dress and best suit for Brandon. That's how happy I was with my wedding, and I couldn't wait for it to happen. 2 months later, we got married, and it was the happiest day of our lives. I was glad that Brandon didn't change when we got married or when we started dating. I mean, most people tend to change when they get what they want, but Brandon kept treating me like his friend and a lover. His love for me, or our love for each other, was not hidden. It was just visible to everyone to see that we were so much in love. We actually became like siblings because of the way we were free and sometimes crazy towards each other. Sure, we had our fair share of ups and downs, arguments just like any other couple, but we maintained the communication. We made sure to not go to bed while angry at one another. Another thing, we would just kiss and make up when we had been having an altercation or argument. Our intimate moments were always on a high level. I don't know if I was saying that because I loved and I still love Brandon, which is funny because I love a person who screwed me over in a most painful and unforgivable way. I think I loved our intimate moments because he was the one who broke my virginity. He was my first true lover and my first true friend. All along I had been having or finding fake friends and playing boys who only wanted me to sleep with them so that they could discard me like an old used cloth or teabag. I had my doubts about Brandon when we first started dating, but the time that we had spent getting to know each other while we were friends really helped because I got into a relationship with him, knowing what I was outing myself into. It was nothing but bliss. Time passed, I started getting bored. I mean, I am a writer and I own a publishing company, so I was always in the house because I was not working for any company but myself. Brandon was always at work and he would come back later when he had knocked off. He didn't change, you know. He was the same husband that I had fallen in love with, and my love for him kept growing each and every time when I looked at him. I loved the fact that he was very much supportive and always there for me when I needed him. I don't know what really came over me when I destroyed the only good thing I had going. A year later, I'd given birth to a very cute and beautiful baby girl. Was I not happy? I was ecstatic, but I couldn't say the same with my husband because he had wanted and hoped for a boy. So a year after our daughter was born, he became distant, going to work earlier than he used to and coming back late. Our marriage was no longer the same, and it was breaking my heart because he was very much in love and supportive during the whole pregnancy journey, but when the child was born, he stuck around for 6 months, then he started his acts. The more Brandon was acting offish and absent to our daughter and I, the more I kept having thoughts about him. He was no longer the loving, romantic, kind, and caring husband that I had married. Wasn't he the one who had been pestering me about starting our own family, building his empire and all that? But when the baby was born, he changed. And he changed for the worst, mind you. The child looked so much like him, but that didn't give him any motivation to show some love and kindness to his child. He was treating me like I was cheating on him or I had cheated on him. Time passed and I saw no change in Brandon's behavior, but it was getting worse each day. I couldn't take it anymore. It was tearing me apart because I didn't know what his problem was, and if I tried to communicate with him about it, he would say there was no problem and he loved our daughter. His words were saying something else while his actions were saying another thing, so what he was saying versus what he was doing was not colliding even a little. So I took my child to my mother's house. I was glad that my mother had fully recovered from her alcohol addiction, and he had become a mother we had always wished for, to me and my siblings, and he showed so much love to my daughter, which was another thing I was grateful for. So I left my baby girl for a full 2 months, telling my mother that I wanted to fix my marriage with Brandon and plead with him to accept that he had a chance to have a child, even if she wasn't what he had expected. But she was still his child, his blood and semen. During my efforts to fix our marriage, the man of the house didn't seem to change. Yes, he would tell me that he loved me, but what about our daughter? What he was doing to me and our daughter was slowly finishing the love I had for him. What is love exactly if you are not showing it but keep saying it like it's a chorus in your favorite song? How can a person say they love you but they can't love their own seed? It was really confusing and heartbreaking because if I were to choose between my husband and our daughter, I would definitely choose our daughter because his love that he said he had for us was not enough. In fact, it was just lousy and useless words because his actions were saying a different thing. One day he had invited his friends for a braai to celebrate his success in getting clients in Asian countries. I was proud of him and his achievements. I won't lie. He had worked very hard to get that contract, and he eventually did through his hard work and dedication. So as the good wife that I was, I helped him prepare for the bride that he was hosting. He had asked me to help him because he first wanted to celebrate with his friends, then invite the family later on when the contract was confirmed and signed. I helped him with everything that he needed. My daughter was still with my mother at that time. So when his friends came, I didn't know all of his friends, I only knew a few. I got the shock of my life. One of his friends was my client back then when I was working at a strip club before I became a writer. So this friend of his used to ask me for my intimate service. He would come to the strip club for the dance, then ask me for my intimate service. He was a well-paying client at that time. I called him my regular because he would come to the club maybe twice or 3 times every week. I just couldn't believe how small the world was, and I got uncomfortable at the fact that he might tell my husband about my past with him. Another thing I wouldn't know is that he was my husband's friend because he was not at our wedding celebration. Worst part was that he had even asked for my service 2 weeks before my wedding with Brandon. They had asked me on different days, and I wouldn't have guessed that they were somehow friends. Yes, I am not proud of what I had done to my husband because he had shown me nothing but true love, and the guys had promised to give me good money and they wanted a good service before they would go on a business trip. That was what they told me. If I knew that they were my husband's friends, I wouldn't have agreed to commit adultery 2 weeks before I got married. Throughout the whole celebration, I was so uncomfortable. The lusting eyes that some of the guys were giving made me more uncomfortable. I didn't know how my ex-regular would act when they got drunk because they were drinking like it was their last time, or what he would tell Brandon. You know how some guys are. And according to what I had seen, it looked like the whole squad knew that the 2 guys were womanizers. The other one liked going to strip clubs while the other one loved sex. I say that because I had been looking and analyzing each and every one of them. Sometimes it's bad to not have friends because you end up focusing on things that do not concern you. So it was scary that the guy I had cheated with was one of my husband's friends. I was not even myself, but luckily no one noticed. About a month later, I received a call from Tom, one of Brandon's friends, the one who was my regular. I was surprised because he hadn't called me ever since the day we last saw each other before my wedding. He asked me to meet him at a certain hotel for a quick one, of which I bluntly refused and reminded him that I was no longer into that life and I was happily married. I said that to get him off my back and hoped that maybe he would get the message, even though I was not really happy. It had been quite some time since things had been tense in my matrimonial house. My husband was acting fishy, like there was something he was hiding from me. At first I had thought it was work pressure, but things got worse. He was suddenly moody. His sex drive was no longer the same. As much as he acted like he didn't love our daughter or even try to play with her, that was a small thing compared to how he was acting towards me alone. So Tom just laughed at me when I told him that I was happily married, and he told me that if I was happily married, I would have acted like a happy person when they had come to Brandon's celebratory bride. I first didn't understand what he was trying to imply, but I somehow remembered that he was the only client that knew me at my happiest, or when I was pretending to be happy. He told me to know my worth, and if the battle that I was trying to win with Brandon was worth it, and how long would I keep fighting for something and someone who couldn't even steal a glance at me when they were in my house. What he was saying was true, but I couldn't give him that satisfaction just because my husband had changed on me. I still had faith that he would be back to be the person he was when we first started dating. My publishing on the other side was doing well. It was the best distraction I had. Time passed, I decided to start going out, to live a little. I had never got time to all that and enjoy my money because I had to think of the situation that I was facing at home. So I started by going to the mall to do some shopping, hoping that it would cheer me up just like all the girls who say shopping was a great therapy. But for me, it wasn't. I won't lie. My husband knew that I was the lover of affection and intimacy, but the way he was acting made me somehow feel frustrated and in so much desire for intimacy. Though I didn't want to do that to my husband because it was going to jeopardize my marriage, I couldn't hold myself anymore to the point that I would sometimes help myself. So when I went shopping, I bought a lot of lingerie, hoping that they would bring at least a small spark to my husband's eyes when he sees me wearing a sexy number. So when I got home, I prepared his favorite dish. Luckily, I had gotten my daughter a nanny because of work, and I was kind of tired of burdening my mother with my problems. My husband came back earlier than expected that day. The nanny and my daughter were at my mother's house, so I tried acting like a good wife and welcomed my husband with a kiss and asked him to go take a quick shower because we needed to talk. Luckily, he complied and did as instructed. While I was left to finish up everything, I made sure to wear something sexy that would make him want to eat me in an instant. When he came back from taking a shower, he came down the stairs and asked what the occasion was and where I was going, since I was wearing a dress that he had not seen before. I told him that I had wanted to spend quality time with him and tried addressing the issue that we were facing in our marriage. But the guy just dismissed my concerns and changed the topic. I asked him to at least notice me as his wife. I then tried seducing him, but he was not having it. He complained about being tired, and what surprised me that day was that he asked where Chrissy, our daughter, was. I knew he didn't ask that because he wanted to ask, but it was because he wanted to dismiss what I was trying to do and address it with him. So I told him that our daughter was at my mother's house. He just took the car keys and told me that a child shouldn't be separated from their mother because that would break the connection and the bond we had, so he was going to fetch her. I didn't really understand the sudden love he had for our daughter, but somehow my heart was happy and at ease to see him considering our daughter's feelings. I had hopes that maybe we would get through everything, but who was I fooling? He left me there with a lingerie on. He didn't even try to at least compliment or show me some affection. He just remembered that he had a daughter that he had been absent with for a year. My heart was broken and I was so thirsty and hungry for some intimacy, so I found myself calling Tom with the hope that he was available. Luckily, he had invited me to their private party because I had told him that I was bored and I needed some company. I didn't even waste any time. I just changed only the dress that I was wearing, then went to the location that Tom had sent. I didn't care if my husband would come back home and not find me. All I was thinking about was the salt and desire for affection that I had been craving for. When I got there, Tom welcomed me and introduced me as his fun girl, which came as a huge shock to me because I didn't remember forming any fun relationship with Tom. But I dismissed that, but maybe we did have a fun relationship, which happened a long time ago. So the night went on, and at that party I noticed a few of Brandon's friends. Someone suggested that we all play spin the bottle, where one would either kiss the person the bottle would be pointed to, or you would have a shot of vodka. That game was fun and all. I had kissed 3 of Brandon's friends, including Tom, that night. Don't look at me like that. We were all sloshed. As the game was getting heated, someone changed it and told us to play truth or dare. I tried containing myself by choosing truths, but Tom asked if I was truly happy and sexually satisfied in my marriage. That question caught me by surprise because I didn't know how to answer, and I couldn't lie because they would see that I was lying. I was getting uncomfortable, so I changed the answer I had given them and chose dare. Tom then dared me to go to one of the rooms in the house with a guy called Kenny for 15 minutes. He looked like he had been craving for me the whole night. I was resistant at first because I didn't know what I was supposed to do in that room, but I eventually went with the guy. When we got there, the guy started touching me. Mind you, I was also tipsy, so the alcohol was playing its role on my body. So it reacted to his touch and smooth words he kept saying within a blink of an eye. I found myself going down with the guy. My mind had flushed down any thoughts of my marriage problems and my husband. I was enjoying the moment. My mind took me back to where and who I was before getting married and having a whole family. Not knowing that the room we were in actually had cameras, I was so caught up in a moment to a point that I didn't notice anything, plus the alcohol was doing its work. The game went on until late and the real fun started when everyone was dancing. I was really sloshed to the point that I found myself dancing like a stripper on top of the table. I did the dance for 3 of the guys, who included Tom, Kenny, and the one that used to come to the strip club for my dance. I would see them in passing. When I did the dance for Tom, I was letting loose and cared less. Little did I know that they were actually my husband's friends. Well, I knew the 2, but I didn't know about Tom. So as I was busy dancing, I told the Tom to follow me to the private room. My stripping habits had come back on full mode, and we were all drunk, so I commanded him to follow me to the room, and he complied. When we got there, we started our little party. I danced for him and seduced him to a point that Tom started touching me, and boom. We were having an intimate moment. I was enjoying the way that he was touching me and making me feel good. I don't remember where the other guy that I called along with Tom had gone, and I didn't care, so I continued with the fun I was having with Tom. He knew what he was doing, and it felt so good. We did a lot the previous night. We were all sloshed to a point that I couldn't remember everything that had taken place in the private room, though I remembered bits of what had happened. I woke up in the morning with a very serious hangover headache. When I looked at myself, I saw that I was not wearing anything. My heart started beating, thinking of the worst and thinking of how stupid I was for putting my marriage in jeopardy. I had committed adultery, something I had vowed to myself to never do again. I was so scared, thoughts were racing in my head. I couldn't help but feel guilty of what I had done, and there was no undoing it. As I was busy panicking, Tom came into the room with a cup of coffee and painkillers to kill the hangover headache. As much as I wanted to appreciate his kind gesture, my heart and my mind didn't allow me to. It was on its own dimension and a very dark one. I just couldn't stay there anymore, so I only took the painkillers and drank them. Tom and I moved to his apartment for more privacy and intimacy. As I was chilling with Tom in his rented apartment, he went to the bathroom as the person who was going to come back sooner. So the time he went to the bathroom, we were talking about my marriage and how much I was not satisfied sexually. While Tom was in the bathroom, I received a call from Brandon, which really took me by surprise because I had thought he had forgotten about me and the fact that he had a wife, that he had more important things to do than to give his wife his full attention and lovemaking. I was on a call with Brandon, hearing him apologizing and asking me to come home because he thought I was at a friend's house. Tom got back speaking and didn't notice that I was on a call with someone. He asked me when will I stand up for myself and leave the loser that I had married, because if he knew what he was missing out, he wouldn't be that busy for his wife. Tom then called him a simp because he is so focused to please his bosses and forget about his wife, then act like a girl just because he had later realized that his wife is gone while he didn't even have time for me when I was at our marital home. He kept talking. I tried signaling him that I was on the call with someone else, but the guy just ignored me and continued telling me that I had married a shame of a husband and called him a loser again. He even said that he knew that Brandon was his friend and he loves him, but he's a loser and a simp and he needed to know that. Somehow I thought that Tom was saying all those things on purpose and he knew that I was on a call with Brandon. On the other hand, Brandon was hearing the whole thing imagine. I was just tongue-tied. I didn't know how to respond and who to respond to because on the other side, Brandon was busy asking why I had told our marital issues to my affair, who is his friend. Then Brandon, started throwing tantrums at me and telling me well more like demanding me to go back home because he didn't want to see me because I had chosen to be a witch that destroys marriages. Brandon was super enraged to a point that I felt like if I was near him, I don't know and can't imagine what would have happened to me. Brandon is a very private person and he doesn't want his life matters to be known by the outside world, especially his friends. So I had made the worst mistake ever for sharing my marriage predicament with Tom. What Arthur did was somehow a blessing in disguise. So I knew that as I was going back home, I had to publish the book first thing when I got there because we were done with everything that was needed to complete the book. I needed to make everything before Brandon even came back because I didn't know what he would do to me with his short-tempered self, not knowing that I was actually already late. When I got home, I found Brandon looking like he was ready to murder anything that made him angry. I knew that I had to be honest with him without waiting for him to even ask about my abomination. I had to tell him that I was in love with Andrew, but I didn't know how he would react. I know it was very wrong of me to hide such an abomination and serious thing from him and for him to find out the way he did. But I was confused and didn't know what to do. So I continued leading him on, even though my heart was slowly falling out of love with Brandon. I knew there and then that my marriage had been ruined, and there was no chance of survival in it. When I got home, I found my husband busy with his drawings. He was doing a very good job, and I was really proud of his accomplishments. I greeted him, and he told me that Chrissy was sleeping in a very cold tone. I knew I was in deep shastriskty because I didn't even notify him about my sudden departure. It was something that came to mind at the last minute. I tried apologizing to him for leaving the house and not telling him where I was going. Instead of saying that maybe it's okay, he just gave me an answer. He was as cold as ice. Weeks later, my husband suddenly decided that he was moving out of the house when I asked him why he was doing that. He told me that it was for the best, not only for him but for myself also. I didn't understand his lame and lousy excuse, so I fought with him about moving. After the whole begging and throwing tantrums that I did thinking he would change his mind, the guy continued with his plans and moved out of the house. He told me that he knew that I had cheated on him with his friend Tom, and I didn't start there because he also found out that I had cheated again 2 weeks before our wedding day. He furthered by saying that he knew about my past job and that the cafe job was just a front job for me. I didn't understand where he had taken all that information. My mind had thought that maybe Tom might have told him. But I found out that he didn't. Brandon had found all of that by himself, and his trusted friends had told me that I had gone to the private party that they had hosted, and Tom introduced me as his fun girl. I had no comeback when he said so. I opted to just humble myself and apologize, hoping that we would maybe try and work things out for the sake of our daughter. He was not having, he was so furious even the veins were coming through his temple. I had seen Brandon angry, but the way he was angry that time made me scared and regret the things I had done. I know I should have been honest with him from the get-go, but I decided to keep everything to myself, and when the old me got unleashed, I couldn't control it, and forgot that I was no longer under the pressure of my family and I was a married woman. But what did I do? I broke the vows that I had made in front of our families, friends, and God, and there was nothing I could have done to save my marriage. I tried pleading with Brandon to at least have mercy and not take my daughter away, but the guy just told us that he was done talking and the call he would like to receive would be the call that tells him that I had signed the papers. I couldn't let him win. I couldn't go back to being the person I was before I found Brandon, so I tried fighting for what was mine. During my efforts to try to fight for my daughter, Brandon did the worst thing possible. He had gone to one of the gossip journalists and told them that my publishing company was a money scheme that frauds successful people with their money in exchange for writing a book for them and about them and their success. He even said that I was untrustworthy and an unreliable person. I couldn't believe how Brandon had destroyed my company's name, my image, and my brand. How can one person be this bitter and evil? He furthered his statement by saying that my publishing company is just a front to get more clients, but my real self was a body seller, a stripper, and a mother to the daughter that I would always take to my mother's place so I would have time to satisfy my clients. I couldn't believe that the guy I had loved and fought so hard for him to notice me as his wife would just go to journalists and tarnish my name just like that. After that, I lost so many clients to a point that I didn't even know how and where I would start and pick up the pieces that the person I had once loved had scattered. I didn't know what to do because as much as I was heartbroken at the fact that I had cheated on Bradley and he filed for a divorce. Another thing was my separation from my husband. On the other hand, the person I had trusted with my life had betrayed me in the worst way possible. Till today, I am unable to move on from what had taken place. I miss my home, my husband, and how our love used to be. I didn't take any actions regarding what I had found about Mandy, and I decided to just leave her alone and focus on my life. I believed that what was happening to me was actually karma for cheating on my husband. The pain of hearing the person who once claimed to love you destroying your name like how Brandon did. It was too deep, and it hurt more than a divorce. I want to forgive myself and forgive Mandy for what she had done and what I had done, but it wasn't easy. It felt like the more I tried to allow myself to forgive and forget, the more I was hurting myself. My divorce with Brandon hasn't been finalized, and I'm praying that he comes back to his senses and allows us to try again and fix our marriage. I wish he could give me a chance to rectify my mistakes and fix what is broken. I know I had not only broken our marriage and trust, but I had also broken the heart of the only person who had shown me genuine love and care. Tom had been there for me throughout everything that I was going through. He had helped me find myself again after my parents' passing and the ill treatment I was getting from my distant family members. My aunt was so disappointed in me when she heard the truth of why I was coming back home, and I don't blame her. I had always thought of myself as a strong and independent woman. I had built a successful business from scratch and had a loving husband, or so I thought. But when I started an intimate relationship with my husband's friend Tom, my world came crashing down. I was devastated. I felt like my whole world had been turned upside down. I lost clients, friends, and even family members who believed the lies Brandon had spread. I was left alone with nothing but the ashes of my once thriving business, but I refused to give up. I knew she had to heal and move on. I started by seeking therapy, where I learned to let go of the anger and resentment. I practiced self-care, taking long baths, reading books, and going for walks in nature. I also started rebuilding my business, but this time I did it with a newfound sense of purpose. I focused on helping other women who had been through similar experiences, using my story as a testament to resilience and strength. As I worked on myself and my business, I realized that I was no longer the same person I had been in my marriage. I was stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. I had learned to love myself, flaws and all, and to stand up for what I deserved. And as for Tom, the man who had called Brandon a loser and a simp, he became my rock, my confidant, and my partner in every sense of the word. Together, we built a new life, free from the toxicity of my past. My story is a testament to the human spirit's ability to heal and move on. I had proved that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter tomorrow. Since Brandon and I were not married under community property, I was left with nothing, and there was nothing to fight for if I were to fight. But he was gracious enough to leave me a house and a car since he had bought them under my name. One thing I would be grateful for was that he made a fair decision on making a joint custody of our daughter. She was going to stay with me and visit him wherever he would be staying. I was grateful for the love, teachings, and everything he had given me. That man loved me, and if I were to take back everything, even the time, I would take back the moments I had shared with Brandon since we had started dating, from the day he started asking me till our last day together. Even today, I still regret the mistake I had made because it was the reason that had destroyed my marriage and my family. I learned the hard way that cheating is never the answer. It only leads to pain and destruction. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you find yourself having to lie to your partner or keep a deep secret, think twice before doing it. Consider the consequences and choose the path of honesty and integrity. I want to fix things with Brandon since our divorce has been finalized. He no longer contacts me even about our daughter, but my aunt, imagine. Please help me with some advice and guides. I really need to have civilized joint custody with him. What do you think I should do?